Hello children, welcome to Guru Gedara English lesson. We are ready with another interesting lesson and Dhammika sir is here with me to conduct the lesson. I hope he will help you with this very important grammar lesson. Sir?
Hello children. Hello Nirmala. My dear children, today we are going to discuss another important grammar lesson. This is the second video of the same lesson, the passive voice. Hope that you have already enjoyed the previous video. And here we are going to discuss the second part of the same lesson. But before we start the today's lesson, let's have a look at the things that we have already discussed. The passive voice. Look at this sentence. Farmers cultivate paddy and paddy is cultivated by farmers. When you look at the active voice sentence, you can understand that the subject or the doer does what is given in the verb. And when you observe the passive voice sentence, the passive voice sentence reveals the reader what is done to the subject. The verb reveals the reader what happens to the subject or what is done to the subject. Look at the next example. The doctor treated the patients. The patients were treated by the doctor. They will send the report. The report will be sent by them. The first one, the simple present tense passive voice. The second one, the simple past tense passive voice. And the third one, the simple future tense passive voice. And let's see what are the verbs that we are going to use in the simple present tense. When you convert a sentence into the passive voice in the simple present tense, you have to pay attention to is, am, are. You should use is, am, are with past participle. And what about the simple past tense? There we use was and were with the past participle. And then the simple future tense we use will be or shall be plus past participle. Children, now this is the summary of what we have already discussed. But today we are going to see some more things. Before that, let's see what we can do if we have two objects in a sentence. Nirmala, have you seen sentences with two different objects?
Yes, of course.
Yes, they are called, one object is introduced as the direct object and the other one is the indirect object. Look at this sentence. The young student gave her a red rose. The young student gave her a red rose. I have taken this one from
Nightingale and the rose.
Of course, yes, the nightingale and the rose. The young student gave her a red rose. Here you have two objects. One is the direct object and the other one is the indirect object. Nirmala, when we convert this sentence into passive voice, we generally use the direct object as the subject of the passive voice sentence. But remember children, you can use both the direct object as well as the indirect object as the subject of the passive voice sentences. So that means this particular sentence can be converted into the passive voice in two different ways. One, with the direct object as the subject, two, with the indirect object as the subject, right? Okay, let's see how we can convert, right? If you convert this sentence into the passive voice using the direct object as the passive voice, you have to use the word to. The word to should be used before the indirect object in the passive voice sentence. Look at this example. Nirmala, will you read it for the students?
Yes. A red rose was given to her by the young student.
When you observe this sentence, you can see that the word to is used before the indirect object. And the next one, the indirect object to can be used as the subject of the passive voice sentence. Have a look at this sentence. I think Nirmala is going to read it.
A red rose was given to her by the young student. The next way, she was given a red rose by the young student.
Right. She. So, the word her becomes she here because it becomes the subject of the passive voice sentence. Right. Now, we are going to move towards the next slide. Let us see sentences with direct and indirect object. The chief guest gave me a souvenir. Right. Here a souvenir, me. So, two words are there, two objects are there. One is the direct object and the other one is the indirect object. So, first we are going to use the direct object as the subject of the passive voice sentence, and Nirmala will always help me.
Of course, yes. A souvenir was given to me by the chief guest.
Right. The next one, indirect object. Me is the indirect object. So, we take it as I as the subject of the passive voice sentence, and it also will be read by Nirmala.
I was given a souvenir by the chief guest.
Okay, children. Hope that you can understand how to convert a sentence into the passive voice if it has two objects, one direct object and the other one indirect object. So, both answers are correct. You can use the direct object as the subject of the passive voice sentence, and at the same time you can use the indirect object as the subject of the passive voice sentence. Whatever you use, your sentence is correct and accepted by the marking examiners. Right? We are getting ready to move towards the next. Right? A small activity. The doctor gave me two different inhalers. The doctor gave me two different inhalers. Here we have two different inhalers. The direct object, me indirect object, and we are going to convert this sentence into the passive voice in both the ways, and she will read.
The first one is, two different inhalers were given to me by the doctor.
The other one,
I was given two different inhalers by the doctor.
the bookshop will send you the price list. The price list is the direct object. You is the indirect object. So, if you take the price list as the subject of the passive voice sentence, you can say the price list. So, you can start the sentence with the price list. The price list will be sent to you by the bookshop, or else if you use the indirect object, you will be sent the price list by the bookshop. So, these are the ways how you can convert an active voice sentence into the passive voice when it has two objects, the direct object and the indirect object. Let us have a look at the next. The present continuous tense. Here in this slide, we are going to discuss how we can convert a sentence that is in the present continuous form into the passive voice. Let us see. They are decorating the new building. They is the subject, are decorating is the verb, the new building is the object. As I have told you, my children, when you convert an active voice sentence into the passive voice, you have to use the object of the active voice sentence as the subject of the passive voice sentence. So, the new building should be used at the beginning of the passive voice sentence as the subject of it. So, we can use the new building here. The new building is a singular noun. The new building is a singular noun. So, you can use is, am, are, but the new building, since it is a singular noun, you have to use is. They are decorating, present continuous form, is being, am being, are being, and the past participle. So, in the present continuous form, you have is being, am being, are being plus past participle. So, when you convert this sentence into the passive voice, you have to use is, being and past participle. That is because the building is a singular noun. Since the building is a singular noun, we use is being decorated. Decorating should be converted into decorated, the past participle. So, the new building and then are decorating is being decorated, and then by them, the agent can be mentioned. Nirmala, I hope that the children might have a question. Sometimes they see the agent, sometimes they don't see the agent.
Yes.
Can we use the agent or can we omit the agent?
Actually, we use passive voice when the doer is not important. So, sometimes we can avoid and sometimes we don't know who had done it.
Exactly correct. So, you are very helpful to me in going ahead with this lesson, right? Okay, they are decorating the new building. The new building is being decorated by them. Let's have a look at the next. The road accident is arousing our emotions. The road accident is arousing our emotions during the last few weeks. Of course, we heard various kinds of road accidents that arouse our emotions a lot, right? So, this sentence is based on one of those accidents that I had witnessed, and this is what I felt at that time. The road accident is arousing our emotions. Subject and verb and object. So, our emotions should be used as the subject of the passive voice sentence. Our emotions, since it is a plural noun, we have to use from is being aroused, am being aroused, are being aroused. Out of these three, we have to use are being aroused because our emotions, it is a plural noun. So, our emotions is a plural noun and we have to use a plural verb. How can we convert it?
Our emotions are being aroused by the road accident.
Okay, children. So, here we use B-E-I-N-G, being, not B-E-E-N, being. Don't misunderstand. This is B-E-I-N-G, being.
They can remember. For ing form, you use being.
Quite simple. Okay. So, the subject becomes the agent, it goes to the end of the sentence, and the object becomes the subject of the passive voice sentence. Quite simple. Let us have a look at this one. A small activity. There are 5 sentences. Shall we give them little time?
Yes, I think it's a better idea because you can take your time and convert these sentences into passive voice form. The band leader is calling you.
The volunteers are cleaning the hospital.
The policeman is directing the traffic.
The CID is investigating underworld activities.
Roadside vendors are selling face masks.
Okay, all these sentences are in the present continuous form. So, shall we convert them into passive voice?
The first thing you have to do is, children, you have to separate subject, verb and object.
Okay, the first one?
You are being called by the band leader.
The second one, in the second sentence, you can see the hospital is the object. The volunteers are cleaning the hospital. So, the hospital is the object. You can take it as a subject of the passive voice sentence.
The hospital is being cleaned by the volunteers.
Third one, the policeman is directing the traffic. The traffic is the subject of the passive voice sentence.
The traffic is being directed by the policeman.
The CID is investigating underworld activities. Underworld activities, a plural noun, becomes the subject of the passive voice sentence.
Underworld activities are being investigated by the CID.
Roadside vendors are selling face masks. This is what you can see every day, right? Face mask, a plural noun, becomes the subject of the passive voice sentence.
Face masks are being sold by roadside vendors.
Of course, children, hope that you have understood this pattern. And we are moving to the next, past continuous tense. The past continuous tense. The detective was following the thief. The detective is the subject. Was following is the verb. The thief is the object. Subject, verb, object. When you convert this sentence into the passive voice, the thief the thief, the object of the active voice sentence should be taken at the beginning of the passive voice sentence. So, the thief should be the subject of the passive voice sentence. There you can use the verb in two ways. One, was being past participle. Two, were being past participle. Was being past participle, were being past participle. In this sentence, the thief, since it is a singular noun, we use was being past participle and was being followed. The thief was being followed, right. So, the agent should be mentioned in the end and Nirmala will read it.
The thief was being followed by the detective.
Okay. Now, you see the verb is used here and then the agent and the subject.
Yes, in the previous one we discussed the present continuous and here the past continuous. So, was or were.
Let us have a look at another example. They were decorating the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is the object and they is the subject. Were decorating is the verb. So, the Christmas tree should be the subject of the passive voice sentence. So, the Christmas tree is a singular noun and you have to use was being decorated, and this is how we can convert it into passive voice.
Yes, now you can see in the first one active voice you can see they were because it is plural, but here since Christmas tree is singular we have to use was there.
Right. And the other thing that I would like to mention you is the word by them. You can use it or you can omit it. It is up to you because here even without by them the sentence gives a complete meaning. So, you can either use it or you can omit it. It is up to you. Basically, my dear children, when we have pronouns as the subject of the active voice sentences, we just omit them in the passive voice sentences, right. A small activity for you, convert the following sentences into the passive voice. Let us have a look at these sentences. There are 5 sentences and I am going to give you a little time in order to try to convert these sentences into the passive voice. Let us see.
Let us read the sentences, children. The CID officers caught 2 terrorists. The teacher was advising the child. The ministry will give the health guidelines. The umpires are giving instructions. The secretary is delivering the vote of thanks.
This is a mixed activity.
Yes, you can see past tense, past continuous, future tense and present continuous. Yes.
Several patterns are there, so you have to pay attention to the lessons that you have already learnt.
I think by now they are familiar with the patterns.
Sure. Let us have a look at the first one. The CID officers caught 2 terrorists. 2 terrorists should be the subject of the passive voice sentence.
Now this is simple past. So the answer is 2 terrorists were caught by the CID officers.
The teacher was advising the child.
That is past continuous.
Yes. The child should be the
Subject.
of the passive voice sentence and there was advising should be converted into was being advised.
The child was being advised by the teacher.
Next one, the ministry will give you the health guidelines.
Future tense. The health guidelines will be given by the ministry.
The umpires are giving instructions.
Right here, present continuous. Instructions are being given by the umpires.
The secretary is delivering the vote of thanks.
The vote of thanks is being delivered by the secretary.
Okay. Hope that you have understood this pattern, and in the next slide we are going to pay attention to the modal verbs. Can, could, may, might, should. There are so many modal verbs and we are going to take a few of them and show you how they can be converted into passive voice when the sentences contain modal verbs. Look at this example. the students should bring the textbooks. The students should bring the textbooks. This is one of the issues that most of the teachers have. The students don't bring their textbooks. The students should bring the textbooks. The students is the subject. Should bring is the verb. The textbooks is the object. So, as usual, we are going to take it at the beginning of the passive voice sentence. The textbooks. Children, when you have should, must, may, might, you can use be and past participle. That means should be past participle, can be past participle. So, if you have can in the active voice sentence, you can use can be past participle, should be past participle, must be past participle. In this one, the students should bring the textbooks. The textbooks should be brought by the students. The textbooks should be brought by the students. Should bring is converted into should be brought. This is easier when you compare with the previous activities. I think this is easier because you can simply use the modal and then be and then past participle. Let us have a look at another example. We can decorate the main hall before the arrival of the chief guest. We, the subject, can decorate is the verb, the main hall is the object. So, how can we convert this one into the passive voice?
The main hall can be decorated before the arrival of the chief guest.
Children, please note that I have not used the word we, I have not used the agent. Agent is omitted. Even without the agent, the sentence gives a complete meaning, so that it is not that necessary for us to use the agent all the time in the passive voice sentences. Right. The African countries have to stop culling. The African countries is the subject, have to stop is the verb, culling is the object. You know, culling is a way of killing animals in order to maintain the natural balance. Every year in African countries, they kill a certain number of animals. Elephants, tigers, leopards are killed in order to maintain the natural balance. That is called culling. Culling is permitted, right? So, culling has to be stopped by the African countries. Culling has to be stopped by the African countries. Let us have a look at this activity very quickly. You have to underline the correct verb form. Underline the correct answer. The train services were restricted on 25th December due to the Christmas season. What is the suitable answer?
Were restricted.
Okay. The second one, the match is being telecast, was telecast on channel I now.
Is being telecast because the word now is there.
Right, okay, thank you. The Open University will be admitted the new students to its IT program.
Will admit, that is in the active voice.
Sri Lanka can be won the match.
Sri Lanka can win the match.
Farmers are affected by the severe drought.
Farmers are affected by the severe drought.
The next activity, this is quite simple. There are 5 sentences and you can try to convert these 5 sentences into the passive voice. Let us have a look at them. They are repairing the old Dutch port.
The old Dutch port is being repaired.
They might issue the A-level results next week.
The A-level results might be issued next week.
He was making a complaint against the officer.
A complaint was being made against the officer.
They are playing the match in South Africa.
The match is being played in South Africa.
The court sentenced him to 2 years imprisonment.
He was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment by the court.
We have come to the end of today's session. In this video, I hope that you have understood on how to convert the active voice sentences into the passive voice. There we paid our attention to the present continuous tense and the past continuous tense as well as the modal verbs. We have discussed 2 videos on the passive voice, and soon we will be meeting you with another video. Nirmala?
Yes, thank you, Dhammika sir. My dear students, I hope Dhammika sir has explained the lesson very clearly. I know this lesson is very difficult for you, but you can watch this again on channel NIE and revise this lesson. So, hope to meet you with another interesting lesson. Until then, goodbye.